Now then everyone, it's time for another tier list. We haven't done one since the Aries special moves. I always used to exclude the Go Galaxy special moves from my individual all shooting moves, all dribbling moves, because I hadn't finished the Let's Play and judged all of them in context yet. But now I've beaten the main story of the Let's Play, so let's just get ranking these. Such as Bicycle Blade. I'm going to go for B tier. It's a little bit odd from a gameplay perspective that Victor gets access to such a good shooting move so early in the game, and the name Bicycle Blade, Bicycle Sword, it's referencing the bicycle kick from football, but if you don't know about the bicycle kick, then the move name sounds really weird. Bindweed, I could make the argument that it's D tier because it's fitting for the team, like it's a forest bugs thing and it will just bring out a tentacle to capture someone and then you run past, but the name in sub or dub inspires no emotion and it's just a little bit creepy to look at. It's not a bad idea, but just one I'm not keen on. Black Dawn is also a bit of a controversial one. This is a really popular move, but it's, conceptually a bit odd. The idea is Victor will kick the ball kind of like a Doom Sword Slash, and then Falco will just run unbelievably fast to catch up to it, and then when he kicks it, it turns into a nebula black hole type thing. It looks cool when it's been shot, even if it reminds me of Nibbler from Futurama in the wrong way. But it's like the running just feels a little bit hard to buy, and this kind of conceptually involves Doom Sword Slash from the beginning, you could say, but it's not that clear. And why it transforms into a Black Dawn type thing feels a bit random. So I think it looks cool. I understand why a lot of people like it. I'll stick to C tier for now. Blam Dunk, though, I'm just going straight to the A tier. Irrespective of Blam's the name, the JME reference. It's just very fun to watch, and you've got to have some goalkeeper moves that are quite weak, especially for someone who's never done football before and then suddenly has to represent the world. It's a very simple idea. It's just a slam dunk, but in execution, it's perfect and leaves a lot of room to evolve. There's really not too much to say about Bounce Handler. Bubble Trouble is also a very good name, but there's not much to see. It's just a water-based shot that's also very hot. It could again be C tier because there's nothing actually wrong with it. It's just not too inspiring. Center Scythe Slice, though. Overall, the Galaxy moves are really good, and I think there's genuinely an argument to be made that no moves actually belong in the F tier. I may move this up to E tier later on. I'm going to have something in the F tier for now on account of the fact it's very boring to look at. It's just an energy particle getting shot at you, and for some reason that deserves 3 whole words: Center Scythe Slice, or Death Scythe Middle in Japanese. Why couldn't they just simplify that? I don't know. But even then, apparently it's got some Muay Thai origins, so that alone could be enough for the E tier, but for now we gotta have something down there, even if it might genuinely be the only one. Tell a lie, there is also its equivalent move of Death Scythe Low, which doesn't have a dub name, but I guess it would just be Low Scythe Slice. But I think this has been left off of the tier list by mistake. Nevertheless, that's my awkward segue to say thank you to TheDamBeaver for making the template for this thing, and if you want to make your own tier list, just check the link in the description and you can get doing that. Claw de Force is really tricky for me because out of all the Terry moves, this is the one I like the least. I like the victory pose, but otherwise the name's really weird, and it's the one that's got by far the least to do with basketball, which is fine. Terry's still playing football at the end of the day, but it just doesn't look that strong. I feel like if Terry did a claw de force in front of my face, even I could kick the ball right past it. I don't get why that's stronger than Blam Dunk. It actually looks kind of weaker. But it does gain some redemption from being part of my favourite Portuguese clip. Radiation Storm! Claw de Force! Ah! I've quoted it far too much to put it in the bottom 2 tiers. Copycut, though, I can just go all the way. That's almost an S tier candidate. Maybe we'll do some readjustments towards the end because I'm trying to keep the S tier not just within context of Galaxy, but within the context of the entirety of Inazuma. What are my favourite moves? But Copycut is still so close. That's Keenan's defensive move. I love the computing reference in the name and just the mimicry of the actions. It's perfect. Defense equation is also better than it has any right to be. The idea is just maths and then steal the ball. It's not even completely original in that, but the posing that Zippy does is so dramatic that it makes it just a joy to watch anyway. Dragon Rage Dunk deserves a better name. Like, it was called Imperial Dunk pretty much in Japanese, and then when dubbing it, they just went for the most literal thing possible. But it's a natural advancement of Blam Dunk, just with extra dragon inputs to kind of combine Blam Dunk with Claw de Force. And as a really powerful finishing move for Terry, it makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad that he's got one because, you know, he could have just peaked with Mammoth, his totem strike, and then not gotten a better regular move. But he did. I don't like it nearly as much as Blam Dunk, but it's pretty alright. Really do like Driving Header. That's another one that struggles with its dub name instead of being called Brutal Head like it was before. But it's so exaggerated. By the time we make it to the 6th Inazuma game, when we're doing ideas as simple as a header, they just go all the way with it, and it pays off in spades. Dry Blow is also another move that shouldn't be this high up, but it's been saved by the Portuguese dub. The montage of Mike Peake, Dry Blow! It just makes me laugh too much, and it's turned a very simple move into a good one. Einsatz will be our first S tier though, and that's no surprise if you watched the blocking tier list already. In each individual move category tier list, I picked my favourite from Galaxy as a bit of a preview for when we'd be covering them all. And Galaxy had an S tier in every category, and Einsatz is the defensive one. Copycut might be joining it, but it surprised me so much when Ricardo actually got a blocking move. I thought the whole playing in defense was just a big compromise for Ricardo, but even though he wasn't there for very long, he still actively took it very seriously and got a blocking move, which at the end of the day isn't very strong, but makes for a good shot block, and it just looks excellent. Konoha Rendezvous, I really don't know where to put this one, because as a move in isolation, I think it's hilarious. It's one of those moves that you can just give to a random player and make them partner up with each other and just giggle at the consequences. But as a concept, I'm surprised that they gave this to Trina, because her whole story arc is that Buddy on the right here confesses to her and she's not really ready for that. So even if it's not necessarily a never, she definitely rejects him in the plot. So why is it that in the game only she has a move which clearly can only be intended for use with the midfielder Buddy? This is a midfielding move where they just actively fall in love with each other and set off for the skies. Like, if Trina is actually withholding feelings for this guy, then that doesn't really get touched upon in the actual story, which holds this move back. But if you just imagine it belonging to anyone else, granted her name is part of the move, Konoha Rendezvous, even if Konoha does just mean leaf, that's why we dubbed it as natural love in our fan translation. If you just imagine it being used by anyone else, then it's pretty good, and even on Trina, gameplay-wise, it's fantastic because she's got so much TP and can spam it. Desert Drift, I think, is great. It's pretty much a lost OG move, you could say. A lot of the desert-based moves were borrowed from the Desert Lions, the team of Qatar, in Season 3, but they never actually had a dribbling move like this, so they just created it now in Galaxy to complete the set almost, and I love all of the desert moves from that team. Royal Heart Shot is also one I got to see for the first time not that long ago. I got to experience it blind in my recording of the Big Bang team, and there's only so high I can put it. It's a very generic move at the end of the day. He clutches his heart and then kicks the ball, leaving a red trail. If I saw that, in the middle of my Inazuma experiences, then I would probably forget it soon after, but it gains a nice little bit of extra because I was introduced to it so late, and technically it's performed perfectly. There's nothing wrong with it. There's just nothing unique to propel it either. Sacrifice is one we never got to see in the Let's Play because the goalkeepers just kept using their totem strikes, but I so desperately wished that it would appear because it's one of the best goalkeeping moves they've ever done, I think. The idea you just take someone from the other team and put it in front of the ball to body block it. It's so villainous, but so funny at the same time. And that's when Inazuma is at its purest for me, when it's trying to take itself seriously, but it just comes off as funny. Its Big Bang equivalent, though, Portcullis Guard, is just as simple as it gets. Drops a castle gate on the ball. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing too memorable about it either. Menacing Glare, though, or Aura Aura Mensch. I'm so confused as to why we never saw this in the anime, because it's Buddy's main move, even ahead of Brutal Head. He's a midfielder, and this is something he has from level 2, just glares at you and scares you to death. Even if you only do it as a one-off so we could learn what the move was called, I would have been so grateful for that. Clearly, doesn't seem like something that was meant to be game exclusive, but we see it there, and just like Konoha Rendezvous, it's so funny to give it to any character that's not Buddy, and just see them do their terrifying glare. Like, oh, I just love it on anyone. Diffuse Chord, though, you know what? This is one of the few moves in Galaxy that I actually kind of don't like. It's a new dribbling move for Ricardo, which he gets as part of a story clip in the match against Ixar Fleet, so you have to see this as part of the main game. It's part of, like, it's a story unlock, but they never put it in the anime. And I can kind of see why, because it doesn't serve much of a purpose. Even when they force you to learn it in Ixar Fleet, I don't really get why. Like, Ricardo has kind of moved away from dribbling at this point. He's now very good at being a defender as well, and his new totem strike is there to boost his dribbling with his new gimmick. Diffuse Chord is only a little bit stronger than Athena's Anthem, which is still part of his level up moveset in the game, and it has a high foul ratio, so it's actively a worse move, especially because it's fire element, so it doesn't even suit Ricardo and have a bonus there. Obviously, I'm meant to be judging these moves mainly in isolation and just basing it on the looks of the move, but it feels like a blocking move and it's actually a dribble. Like, you could remove the ball from Ricardo's feet here and instead have it just be on a player on the other side, and he could do the exact same thing and it would work as a blocking move, but instead it's dribbling. And honestly, I would rather it be a blocking move because he learns Einsets so early on. It makes sense for him in his sort of new role to have a really good blocking move at the end of the game, which is visually very linked, but instead it's just a dribbling move that he doesn't need, and it's like his 6th music move at this point. It's no better than the others. Let's take a little break from the game exclusive moves. These are all in alphabetical order, but the ones that don't have a dub name because they're game exclusive have kind of defied the alphabet in that sense, so we'll come back to them in a bit. Let's just go to Gravel Gavel, because this is a move that should be so B or C tier. It's just a big hammer made out of rock. But the name just elevates it. We tried so hard as a fan translation team to come up with a good name for Rock Hammer. We just couldn't get anything interesting in the end. I think we kept Rock Hammer in the end. But Gravel Gavel is so creative, and it gave us an experience of, we've tried to put ourselves in the shoes of an Inazuma 11 localization team. We've tried to be funny with the same kind of puns, and for this move, we couldn't do it. But the OGs, the actual team, completely could. Gravel Gavel is just a masterpiece of a name. Fancy Footwork technically should be as well, except they came up with another move in Ares which would also later be called Fancy Footwork. But this is technically the original, so I shouldn't hold that against it. And I think it's great, actually. It shows, you know what, it is worthy of A tier. This move genuinely translates boxing into football. And that should be impossible, right? Because boxing is done entirely with your arms and football's done entirely with your feet. How can you make a boxing move work with legs? But this just does genuinely just recreate the movement of being in a boxing ring and works quite effectively as a block. All of the main Earth 11 team members have great block moves. Let's sub in Gusher Crusher for a C tier move. It's very typical to give an oil-based move to a Saudi Arabia team. It's still worth having one. We haven't had an oil move yet in Inazuma, but it doesn't hit with a great degree of impact. I guess it doesn't need to because it's an early game team. It shouldn't be that strong of a move, but it just feels a little off to use. And Gusher Crusher, I think, although it's a good rhyme, you've removed the word oil at this point. Oil Rush was probably a better name. Gold Rush has the same problem, except I'd actually criticise it a bit more because this belongs to a better team and it lacks impact even more. Like, at least Oil Rush in the anime, you saw it splash into the back of the net very suddenly, but Gold Rush, the only particles applied to this move is the gold that's kind of coming out of the ground, not really following the trail of the shot. The ball itself is just spinning and heading for the goal. It doesn't look that strong at all. Like, I could punch the ball in Gold Rush and stop the move from going in. Is gold also really that much of an Uzbekistan thing? Like, I can't say I know a great deal about the country, but is gold what they're known for? And Hoopsie Daisy can go in the B tier. It's a simple, rhythmic ribbon thingy, but again elevated by a really funny name, and on Charisse it does look very stylish. In fact, her shot move can follow as well, Mermaid's Tail. Game exclusive. Again, it looks very good used by Charisse because she is a rhythmic gymnast and can be very flexible. It creates a shot which is kicked in a way which no other character can even compare to, although it does come at the expense of looking like it wouldn't be that strong, and if you give this move to anyone that's not Charisse, it's going to look particularly weird. Crocodile Jaws is completely fair for an Australian team. Let's go for another S tier. Look UFO is specifically the highest out of these three so far. I'll always try and make sure that the S tier is ordered, and I'm pretty sure A tier might be as well. Yeah, let's go with that. Look UFO, how did it take until Season 6 to come up with a move where you just force someone to look away and trick them? It's something we've all done in real life at this point. One of the most imitable Inazuma moves, but it's just funny. And that's what I want from this series, so well done to Keenan for that. Blast Zone is just a bit boring. I don't really have much affinity towards it. Like, some of my favourite explosion moves in Inazuma are the funny ones like Dynamite Shot, but this one's taken completely seriously and it's not that strong, and it's just, at this point we're getting a bit bored of normal fire moves in Inazuma. Like, when we get to Orion and we have the goalkeeping move Firewall, it's like, right, clearly we need to just remove the element of fire. But sometimes you don't, because you have ones like Volcanic Header, which look really great, actually. This is another one that you miss out on a lot in the games because of Totem Strikes taking priority, but Volcanic Header hits with all the impact that you would want it to. Magmire is also quite unique as a blocking move. I'm tempted to move Gold Rush down, Magmire, the idea of using lava but then solidifying it, so magma, not lava, to trap someone in place as a dribbling move. It could work just as well as a block move. It's not the most exciting, but it's good. I'll do a pair of C tiers which have the same kind of logic. We have Major Minor, the dribbling move, and Under Minor, the blocking move. Maybe it's the other way around, but in Japanese, these are just called dig up and dig through, and in both cases, it is just someone digging into the ground to either dribble with the ball or take the ball from someone. Really simple concept, but hadn't been done, technically, or at least mostly hadn't been done, so it belonged on the team that they gave it to, and then the dub team did an excellent job of actually differentiating them and keeping them connected at the same time. They both end in minor, but Major Minor is a music joke, while Under Minor is just a joke about undermining someone. They're very different jokes that both end with minor and keep the moves connected, so I love them for that. Let's dump Phalanx in the D tier, C tier as well. It's another case where Big Bang kind of got the short end of the stick compared to Supernova. both referring to the team and the games overall. Big Bang ultimately was just a much less interesting team and backstory than that of Supernova, and that's kind of reflected in the blocking move as well. But it still goes higher than most because it does genuinely look really effective, and it's a reference to something very particular that we wouldn't have known about otherwise. Though if I were to pick a move from Supernova that maybe doesn't get that compliment, Psychic Bow, I think, is the most boring one. It's just a psychic blast that they fire like an arrow. As you can tell, they have an S tier in the goalkeeping category. We'll get to the shots and the dribbles later, but Psychic Bow is probably the weak link. Well, why get to it later when we could get to it now? Here's Orbital Drive as a B tier, and this is one that I struggle to rank because on the one hand, it's unlike almost every other Inazuma move, just the complete redirection of the shot with every move of Arculus's hand. You could also say, if you're capable of doing this, why can't you just score like 100 goals in a match? Like, if you can just have the ball and then psychically control it into the net, just do that. It's kind of like the one very slight problem with Stargazer. It's like, okay, why did you stop using that if you can score from anywhere? Orbital Drive, it's kind of cheating, but it's cool, so we forgive it. So Supernova's blocking move is Fatal Lift, the one where you lift someone up into the air and then just drop them psychically. That would be a B tier as well, but it does look to have been left off of the tier list by mistake. So let's instead rank sort of Atlas, the dribbling move from Big Bang. And just like the rest of Big Bang, maybe I've been a little bit harsh on Portcullis God. That at least looks kind of unique, but like this isn't. We had Sword of the King in the previous game. This is the exact same motion as Excalibur, just with hands instead of legs. Like with the excess fire moves in Inazuma, we definitely have an excess of sword moves as well, and this is as basic as it gets. Sure, it's fitting for a team of knights. They will use a sword to get past you in battle, but I don't expect too high of praise for it. One more game exclusive for now. Stealth Walk from Phalamadius is kind of the point between C and B. It's not really a move that's designed for me. It's just very cool and powerful, i.e. player turns invisible, takes the ball from you and then reappears. It's executed extremely well. It's just not necessarily my thing. I could put it in B or C tier and I don't think that would change much. It may be a little better, though, than the anime equivalent that did get in the blocking move, Hollow Grab. The name's a little dull, but clearly Phalamorbius, you don't really think about the team having a theme because it's half made up of, you know, the Purple Emperors, the Heavenly Kings, where they were on different teams that they were more fitting on. But the actual unique members of Phalamadius do have this cyber theme going on, and Hollow Grab fits in pretty well. Not as well as Kabuki Strike works on Zac Avalon, though. Let's go for a very popular one. I'm going to go A tier for Scream of Eden because I completely get why everyone loves it. It's extremely powerful and very, very cool and very unique. It's a collab shot where everyone's got their own unique role. It's also very brave of them to make such a direct references to the early tales of the Bible. Usually games are going to want to stay clear of religion, but this just turns it into a massive laser beam football move. So you know what? Let's have it. Let's also really take some time to think about Rapid Fire, the shot for Fire Dragon. It isn't creative. It doesn't look particularly strong, and it doesn't need to be because it's on the first team. There would be nothing that I could really praise it on. It would be a solid D tier in concept. But wow, that Portuguese dub, I mean, that sure gave me a viral tweet. Maybe I should release it as a YouTube short or something as well. Have a second wind of Rapid Fire. I won't go for the accurate impression of that move because that might get me age restricted. But you know what? It's paid me back in spades. This is a move that's actively done me a favour, so I like it now purely in an ironic sense. So here's a move which a lot of people also like ironically. The blocking move Willy Willy. It sure is called Willy Willy. That's the name of a real dust vortex in Australia, and that's where the move comes from. I would love to know what the localization team did with this move because, it sounds like a rude joke, yeah? But the dust vortex is genuinely called Willy Willy. That's just what Australia's like. They've got some very questionable names for a lot of places and things. And I love that for them. I'm actually going to get to go to Australia for the first time next year, which I'm excited about. But hopefully I won't get caught in a Willy Willy. I think I have to put it low just because it gave me such a headache when trying to localize the name and give it. I basically have the battle over whether to keep the name or not. Leaf Bowler, I think, is the most basic of the blocking moves given to any Earth 11 defender. They have a really good track record. Leaf Bowler, I appreciate that it comes out quite accidentally. It's very fitting for Trina in that sense, and then she does roll with that and become the first one to get a totem strike, but as a move in isolation, it's not amazing. Something that is amazing, Galactica Fall, the last Inazuma 11 special move that I'll ever get to see, until that Victory Road of Heroes thing appears anyway. Will it? Who knows, but Galactica Fall, the strongest move in Inazuma 11 GO Galaxy, the combination of Big Bang and Supernova, and it's just a magnificent payoff. So much effort went into the lighting, the animation, the concept of just a pure space dive. It succeeds, and it's probably like the move that you would define a game called Inazuma 11 GO Galaxy with. But if there was one other move which could hold the title of the Go Galaxy shot, it's got to be space, it's got to be cool, it's got to be powerful, and it's got to be a fan favourite. And that easily goes to Stargazer, my favourite shot in the entire Inazuma 11 series. And I get, honestly, that that's quite a contrast for my usual takes. I like the funny moves, not the big strong ones. I want a move to make me laugh. But hearing that excellent voice actor just go, Stargazer, and then we get the beautiful beams in the sky, it became my favourite move before I'd even seen it in the games, because I always used to play the games first. But I think experiencing it as an anime first move really did help it. And then I still got the dub experience later, learning that it's actually called Radiation Storm, and hearing the non-voiced version of the game with the pew as it goes along. But I could talk about the Inazuma SD, like Halloween version if you want. I could talk about Stargazer all day. Even the name is just absolute 10 out of 10. I love this move. I don't really love Menace Elbow. Is it a joke on Tennis Elbow? Because that is all I can come up with. At the end of the day, it's an elbow strike followed by a funny Muay Thai pose. I love the bit in the Portuguese dub where he just goes, "Dua," as if that's meant to sound like Muay Thai. But there's not much to say. I'm just purely creating conversation around it. I actually really don't like Sandwinder that much at all. The name's very similar to Sidewinder already. It's called Dust Javelin in Japanese, but at the end of the day, it belongs to a sand-based team, and the shot is a kick that's covered in sand to the point where you can't really see what's going on. It doesn't have that much of an impact to it. It's just kind of steadily heading towards the goal rather than blasting its way past. You just kind of see the kick, and then a lot later you actually see it head towards the goal. It's just kind of doing its own thing, and I just don't have any one particular thing about it that I want to praise. I mean, the image here is literally just sand. Straight counter also can't quite replicate the success of fancy footwork in translating boxing, which uses arms, into football, which uses legs. This is, boxing setup. I'm doing the boxing pose in my face cam that I don't even have turned on. But at the end of it, he just has to kick the ball normally with a boxing glove behind him. Just doesn't translate that well. I still wouldn't criticize it too much because it's not like I'm expecting him to actually punch the ball. That wouldn't be allowed. But in the game, it's kind of useless because it's way too weak to actually shot block anything. They try to balance it because it's before you beat the main story, so it's kind of useless there. While and especially Frank's kickstart is so low. Meanwhile, in the anime, it scores way too easily. Like, it's got that counter drive problem where it can just score from anywhere and kind of ruin the flow of what's going on. Let's also give some credit to Magical Amplifier, because the point of this move is to be a really strong shot used by the players in Ixar Fleet, but not by Ozrock. So it's meant to not take the attention away from Radiation Storm, the single strongest shot of the team, but it's still meant to be very good in its own right. What it reminds me of the most is Centrifugal Blast in Ares, where it's not meant to take attention away from Hyzaki and all of his penguin moves, but it's still really strong in its own right, just belonging to a different forward. I think they both serve that kind of purpose. It's a little bit like Shellbit Burst, but with a bit more of a space theme. It does it really well. Deceitful Wings I also think is particularly good as a dribbling move for them, if it does belong to them. Maybe it's Farum Medius. I do mix their moves up just a little bit, but it's so graceful and really kind of almost unfortunate to not make it into the anime, but in other senses, maybe it is fortunate because it kind of needs that frame rate and that fluidity to just keep it constantly in motion in a way where stills might not manage it. I mean, I'd love to see them try. I'm certainly not saying the anime has bad animation quality. That would be very far from the truth. But, you know, as a game exclusive, this is a rewarding one to get to the end of the game and find. Injection also serves the same kind of purpose for Farum Medius rather than Ixar Fleet, and you know when I said Galactica Fall was the last move I would ever see in Inazuma 11? Yeah, I was wrong. It was actually Injection. It never appeared in my Let's Play or my original playthrough because you have to work really hard to take a shot from Farum Medius because they've got players like Victor and other capable shooters up front. To take a shot from their actual forwards takes a lot of work. I only saw this for the first time yesterday. But it's great. I don't really understand the name Injection, but as a move, you know, turning your leg into a mech thing from spinning camera angles and then giving it a good spiraling blast at the end, this one definitely deserved to be in the anime to properly cement it as a legacy. Because right now, even though I love them both, Injection and Magical Amp, I have to remind myself which one's which because they're both game exclusive, they're both green, and they're both shooting moves from late game teams that you have to really work hard to find. But they are both good. I've got them both in B tier. They might as well be side by side, but beneath Driving Header. This bit isn't necessarily in order, but my favourites are definitely at the front. With Rapid Fire also definitely at the bottom. Sandblaster I will just pop in the D tier. There's not too much to say about it. I used to work in Google Ads for a sandblasting company. When I was trying to come up with a dub name for this move, I thought, can we really call it Sandblaster or is that too irrelevant? The localization team says, no it's not. Typhoon, Tornado, Hurricane should also stand out as quite generic. You kick the ball and it turns into a tornado, but it's Arian's personality that makes it Storm, Tornado, Hurricane! Just making light of it, despite absolutely not compromising on power whatsoever. I'm glad Arian just does get a good move at the end of the match, because he didn't have to. I don't feel as positively about the Earth Infinity, really. It's a logical callback, you know, we're in space representing the planet of Earth, so bring back Season 2's strongest shot and kind of one of the strongest shots in the entire original series, the Earth, and then upgrade it to be more powerful. But it's just comes a little bit out of nowhere, as the final strong shots for each season always does. That I hold that against all of them, not just the Earth Infinity. Well, actually, the Earth in Season 2 did have build-up. That was part of the point. But yeah, it belongs to Victor without same type attack bonus, and it's just giving you a really strong move as a freebie, except, you know, with the Earth in Season 2, you had to work hard to use that in-game because it belonged to your goalkeeper, but Victor can just use that as often as he likes. Judgment Ray I struggle to rate again because it's incredibly violent. It's very much not football, I would hate to be on the receiving end of a Judgment Ray, but that is at the end of the day the feeling that Ixar Fleet should be giving off. So even if it's not to my personal tastes, it is to the tastes of what Ixar Fleet should be doing. Tusk Force is an awesome name for an elephant-based shooting move that ends with some Muay Thai. I'm going to put that right next to Gravel Gavel because they're both elevated in the same way. Volcanic Lightning almost gets knocked down, meanwhile. It loses the nice snappy Kazanrai for its very literal translation of Volcanic Lightning. I couldn't come up with anything more exciting for it, but this is a move which is really popular, and I've never totally understood it. Maybe it's just because I'm not that big on Bala, but at the end of the day, it's a big explosion followed by a kick that's got some ash behind it, and it's very well done, don't get me wrong, but I don't really like the kicking angle. It's more of a slash than a kick, and I don't really get how it transforms into what it does. I'm not going to slag it off too much at the end of the day, because I know people love this move, and I don't dislike it by any means. It just doesn't do much for me. Parkour Power, though, absolutely does. That's going to give us a second row on the A tier for now, and I'm going to try and keep this bit of the list ordered. So I will say Parkour Power goes here, and Galactica Fall will go above Scream of Eden but below Fancy Footwork. Parkour, when I saw this for the first time in Inazuma, I thought, wow, this really wasn't made that long ago, because I'd always played Inazuma, you know, in my childhood, growing into young adulthood, and then Galaxy, I waited several years before watching it, to the point where, yeah, it was now like 2018 before I finally watched Galaxy, because I was foolishly waiting for an official translation of the game. But when seeing it, I had to think, wait, parkour existed back then? Obviously, parkour's has always existed, but it had a really trendy period at one point in the mid-2010s, and I was just shocked to see it in Inazuma at all. But on Falco, it's brilliant. Warsaw isn't. Funny name based on Poland's capital, but as a move, it's got almost nothing to it. Water Wall is also just a waterfall, but it's animated really well. Like, I wouldn't want to be the one using this, I'd be soaked, but it does its job. Spout It Out, similarly, is just breathing water at the ball until it stops. It's a funny name, but there's very little to comment on otherwise. Volcanic Rock, I think I'm going to go very low for this as well, because it's, in theory, pretty good, and it does a lot right. Like, I like the way the ball changes colour after emerging out of the ground, but it doesn't quite do enough for me. I think there needs to be some kind of more obvious trail going behind the ball, because in motion at the end of the day, it's you kick the ball into the ground and then it re-emerges looking slightly hot, but it doesn't have much power going behind it other than the heat. I think it has the potential to be a nice basic move in the C tier or something, but when it's actively got a few flaws, I think I'm going to go down here. But enough negativity, let's go for the S tier, because Silk Road is going to go in third place. Look, UFO was the Galaxy dribbling move that I nominated in my dribbling moves tier list as a preview, so that means I think Silk Road probably wasn't there, but I've made it very clear whenever I've talked about this move, I absolutely love it. It is a visual treat, and so glad to have it here. I want to use it on pretty much every player I've got. It doesn't even need to be a strong move, it's just art. Can somebody tell me why winning logic was never in the anime? I can't quite decide at the moment whether it's A tier or B tier. It's got less of a direct reference to the players' personalities like the other moves, Copy Cut and Defense Equation, do. This is just the two of them teaming up to have a move together, but you learn it by level up on both of those players in the game. It's not a story unlock, and it's not in the anime at all, and I can't believe that, because both stories put so much work into showing the friendship and the teamwork between Keenan and Zippy, and they designed this move for them. Why don't we get to see it? Regardless, though, I think it is good enough for the A tier, so let's leave it there. Fungus Mungus, I think, is the last of the moves to really get elevated by its dub name, so let's just have all of these together. Is this pretty much in order? I think the B tier is quite loosely ordered. At the very least, the best moves go from here to here, and then after that you've got moves that I either like but not quite as much, the 3 that are carried by their name, and then after that is moves that I either like more than I should, or I've got a bit of a flaw with them. I guess Kabuki Strike is a small exception, so let's put that here specifically. Slightly better than Desert Drift, but not better than Konoha Rendezvous. Fungus Mungus is just jumping on mushrooms. It's Mushroom Gorge from Mario Kart Wii, but with a name that would age so poorly. Dun 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 dun. Venus Ball Trap also. Congratulations to Zikria AK for accurately predicting what the dub name was going to be. It does exactly what you'd expect, and it's good. Twist and Clout, it's also kind of hard to believe it took this long to have just an extending arm move in Inazuma, especially because it wouldn't be the last one. Like Dusk Grayling and even Mark Evans in Orion gets their own version of the same concept. But for the Mrs. Incredible finally getting into Inazuma, this one lacks a bit of impact to go a little higher. They kind of said the extending arm would be enough, but once it gets to the ball, I feel like it could be doing a bit more. But then the name's also funny, so that helps. Gigant Vine, I will put at the bottom of D tier because it has a lot of the same problems as Sandwinder. In the initial kick happens right at the beginning, and then once it's turned into its elemental trailing thing, this time a vine instead of sand, you kind of lack the impact of it reaching the goalie and hitting with its power. It's just kind of heading in that direction, and you have to assume its power. It works a little bit better, though, as a long shot, and at least it's being used by Banda. Scorching Skydive, or whatever it's called officially, I think this is good enough to just about scrape into the B tier. It's their blocking move, and you will just ignite your legs in flames, go way up into the sky, and then plow down to take the ball away. But sometimes a block needs to take the ball at the end of the day. There's only so much you can do with blocks in comparison to the other move categories, and this just has all of the gravitas that a late game team should have. Shoot Eater is somewhere between C and D. I'll just about go with C, I think. It's a move that is very fitting on its team, and it's a nice concept that hadn't properly been done up to this point, but it's not something that inspires me too much. You could almost kind of say that the C tier is in fact 2 different tiers, where I feel really quite positively about Black Dawn up to either here or here, and then Water Wall through to Shot Devourer is definitely a step down. Let's put Judgment Ray in between. That's kind of the midpoint between how I feel about them. But C tier is still good. Like, you've got the C tier moves that definitely deserve it, including one that could probably stand to go higher, and then the ones that kind of just about got there. But that brings us to our final move, because Racing Flame was already in Season 3. If you wanted me to rate it, I guess that would also be in the B tier. I like how snappy it is. These 3 are special tactics. There's only 3 new special tactics in the Galaxy anime, which is really funny. But we have Liftoff. We have an S tier. I will put it ahead of Einsatz, behind Silk Road, as my 4th favourite move in Go Galaxy. And it has to belong to JP, who's outdone all of Terry's moves. I still have Blamdunk very close to S tier. This is ordered, like I say, like at least the first 2 tiers are in order. And B tier, I'm going to say Bicycle Blade can go in 3rd behind these 2 that I definitely like a lot more. Konoha Rendezvous, the more I'm thinking about it and judging it in isolation, I'm willing to put that above Hoopsie Daisy. So let's say this is ordered up to the point of Hoopsie Daisy. But we have Liftoff. It has a permanent voice line attached to it to one thing. But JP, we've seen him fail for 3 seasons straight, and he never quite had the power behind the goalkeeping moves that he needed to help us take it seriously. the compromise they reached in the end was just turning JP into a rocket, sending him off to space with the ball. It's like, actually, you know what? This is the perfect JP conclusion. It is a good move. It doesn't look the strongest in the world, but it doesn't have to. It's just full of personality and a fantastic little conclusion. So there we go. We have 4 moves in the S tier that made it there previously in other tier list videos, and some new ones to join it in Silk Road and Sacrifice. There's also some really close calls with all 3 of these at the top, which I'm a huge fan of. But I've tried to be balanced, and I think we've succeeded. So the F tier would only have 2 moves in there, Center Scythe Slice and Low Scythe Slice. And they are still some of the best moves I've ever put in F tier. They're clearly not Polar Bear number 2 levels of bad, but to have it in the same tier as these would maybe be a little bit insulting to the likes of Sandwinder and Diffuse Chord, which are just decent but flawed moves at the end of the day. So this is the tier list. Please let me know what yours looks like on twitter.com by doing the tier list in the generator that TheDamBeaver made. Send it to me and we'll share our thoughts. But now I've only really got one of these left that I can do, just the Orion special moves. Then the tier lists, at least as far as Hissatsu's are concerned, are over. There wouldn't really be much of a point in me doing a tier list with every move ever. Never know. Maybe someone will make the generator. I'm not going to ask that of poor old TheDamBeaver. But thank you for watching. Let me know your favourite comment, your favourite moves from Go Galaxy. I'll see you in another one.